Prove it.
Welcome to Hamburgers and Horror, the home of meat, monsters, mommies, and daddies. I'm Noah Hook, and today we're looking at The People Under the Stairs. This 1991 horror comedy follows a boy named Fool hoping to stop him and his family from being evicted from their Los Angeles apartment. Teaming up with some local burglars, he breaks into his greedy landlord's home in the search of a rare coin collection. He quickly realizes it's a lot easier to get in than out, as the home is chock full of traps, attack dogs, and murderous psychopaths. The People Under the Stairs was written and directed by Wes Craven, a horror legend we all know and love for films like The Last House on the Left, The Hills Have Eyes, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Screams 1, 2, 3, and 4. Craven was actually inspired to write this script after seeing a real-life news story in 1978. The case involved two African-American burglars who broke into a house in LA, which unintentionally led to the police discovering a pair of children who had been abused and imprisoned by their parents. Craven takes that basic premise and goes absolutely nuts with it here. The film stars 12-year-old Brandon Adams from The Mighty Ducks and The Sandlot as Poindexter Williams, better known as Fool. AJ Langer from Baywatch and My So-Called Life as Alice Robeson, Ving Rhames from Dawn of the Dead and Jacob's Ladder as Leroy, Sean Whalen from Tammy and the T-Rex and Idle Hands as Roach, Everett McGill from Dune and Silver Bullet as Daddy Robeson, and Wendy Roby from The Glimmerman and Vampire in Brooklyn as Mommy Robeson. Craven landed on McGill and Roby as the villains in the film based on their performance together as married couple Ed and Nadine on Twin Peaks. Cinematography was handled by Sandy Sissel of Salaam Bombay and Mr. and Mrs. Smith, with the score collaborated on by Don Peake of The Hills Have Eyes and Graham Revell of The Crow. The wide variety of special effects were created by incredible effects artist Howard Berger, Robert Kurtzman, and Greg Nicotero. The People Under the Stairs was shot in LA on a budget of $6 million, which it quickly made back at the box office, eventually grossing $31 million, although it was met with pretty mixed reviews from critics. Some loved the film's zany, uneven tone and its political themes, while some felt it was just too all over the place. I've seen The People Under the Stairs once before and I had a good time with it, but I'm excited to revisit it now that I'm a bit older, smarter, and more familiar with Craven's other work. Big thank you to my patron Jason for requesting The People Under the Stairs for me to review, and if you'd like to become a patron and help decide what movies I cover on the channel, scroll down to the link in my description. But with all that said, it's probably time we get started. May we all burn in hell, 'cause we're watching The People Under the Stairs. The movie opens as Fool's sister Ruby gives him a tarot card reading for his birthday, which indicates he'll soon face a challenge that will either kill him or have him come out the other side as a man. Fool's mother is dying from cancer, and a family friend named Leroy explains to him that they are being evicted tomorrow because they are 3 days behind on rent. They do have the option to pay triple in order to stay, but Mom and Ruby definitely don't have enough. The Williams family are the last residents left in the building due to rent spiking, as the landlord wants to tear the building down and build some luxury apartments, so there is no chance they can bargain or pay late. Leroy does have an idea of how Fool can help make the money though, and it involves the landlords. Speaking of, let's meet the Robeson family. We've got super racist mommy, super greedy and cannibalistic daddy, and super abused daughter Alice. Mommy and daddy are pumped to evict the Williams family and get some more good, clean people in the neighborhood. Alright, we'll talk to y'all later. Fool makes his way through the LA ghetto he lives in back home, which is pretty much just a trap house aside from their apartment, where Ruby and Leroy are arguing over his involvement in Leroy's newest heist. She doesn't want Fool turning to a life of crime, but Leroy doesn't see another option if they want to keep a roof over their heads. While robbing a liquor store, he found some documents that proved that the landlords also own the liquor store, along with half the properties in the entire neighborhood. They've been gentrifying and profiting off the community for years, and Leroy thinks it's time they return the favor. This letter is from a company interested in buying the landlord's apparently priceless gold coin collection, which he's hoping to steal from their home. Fool agrees to help, and he tells his mom that he's gonna prove himself as the man of the house. Meanwhile, Mommy greets Alice with a dress she made, and it's clear she treats her daughter like a doll made to do whatever she wants. Mommy realizes the fork is missing and threatens to punish Alice, but a ghostly hand returns it to her from a vent. Daddy enters, already angry about the liquor store robbery, and Mommy shares that Alice has been feeding the creature living in the walls again. He removes his belt to beat and maybe rape her, although it happens off screen. Leroy and his buddy Spencer drive by the Robeson home, and Fool approaches the house on foot disguised as a Boy Scout. Alice notices as he checks out a tiny pond in the yard, and Mommy quickly shoos Fool and his questionable cookies away. He shares with the boys that the windows have metal screens and padlocks on the outside, but Spencer wants to scout the place further before the robbery. He rolls up claiming to work for the gas company, but it appears Mommy is onto him as she lets him inside the house. Leroy's nervous that Spencer's gonna snag the coins and cut them out, and they're shocked to see the woman leaving while Spencer is still inside. They pull into the driveway and ring the bell, but resort to breaking in when they aren't answered. The home is in an interesting state to say the least, and there is another heavy-duty door between them and the main house. Leroy gets through though, setting off the first of many strange mechanisms hidden within.
I done busted this house, Cherry.
Ah shit, the Robesons got a Roddy. The not-so-good boy attacks Leroy until Fool tricks him into the mudroom, and the two manage to lock him in there. Fool notices that the house isn't exactly on the up and up, but Leroy ain't leaving until they find Spencer and the coins. They continue to hear noises throughout the house without finding anyone, and Fool notices Spencer's clipboard on the basement staircase. He hears a creepy-ass voice below, and despite his better judgment, he goes down to investigate. Someone pulls a string to shut the basement door, and he notices someone with a flashlight watching him. Fool finds a TV facing a ventilation shaft and is scared by something moving around inside, and he's subsequently scared by a bunch of somethings with flashlights behind a makeshift wall. He also finds Spencer, who has apparently been scared to death. Oh, he did find a coin though. Fool is suddenly tackled by a wailing young man, and when he tries to escape, the staircase shifts into a ramp. Alice opens the door for Fool and runs away, allowing him to escape and lock the basement shut. He realizes that Mommy and Daddy have returned and rushes upstairs to warn Leroy that Spencer is dead. They head down to find the owners working on getting inside, and they find out the hard way that the front door is electrified. The Robesons kick in the door enough to let Prince the Rottweiler in, and Leroy decides to use Fool as bait. Unfortunately, Prince goes straight for Leroy, but Fool has the bright idea to give the pooch a little shocky shock. This knocks out the dog as they rush upstairs, and they watch as Daddy pulls out a big fucking gun. Leroy tells Fool to find his own hiding spot as the Robesons lock down the house, and Daddy emerges with his laser scope. The boy living in the walls scares Leroy out of hiding, and Daddy fills him with bullets. His body tumbles down the stairs as Daddy hoots and hollers, with the happy couple dancing over their victim's corpse. Fool follows a trail of clues into a vent as Daddy clears the rest of the floor, courtesy of Alice. Daddy hears the noise but assumes it's the boy living in the walls and fires off a couple warning shots to scare him back to the basement. The vent leads to a new hallway, including a bathroom where Alice is hiding. She is puzzled by Fool's skin color, revealing she is never allowed outside the home. She says lots of people have tried getting out, but none have ever succeeded. The people under the stairs are boys that Mommy and Daddy kidnapped in the search for a perfect son, but none were good enough. Daddy cut the bad parts out and locked them in the basement, giving them nothing but flashlights and routine meals of human flesh. She hasn't been locked up because she hears, sees, and speaks no evil, basically meaning she is obedient. He asks about the boy in the walls, who Alice says is named Roach. He was locked in the basement as well, but managed to escape into the walls, and Daddy has been hunting him ever since. Oh shit, Daddy's got his hunting gear on as we speak! Alice tells him to join Roach further within the house to hide, but he opts to take his chances in the bathroom. Meanwhile, Mommy has rewarded Prince with a tasty severed hand. Good boy! She notices some cops have shown up and warns Daddy over an intercom, and the officers can't hear Fool's cries for help. Mommy and Daddy convince the cops that they've swept the house to make sure nobody is inside, and the officers share that this van was used in a certain liquor store robbery. They head out to search for the perps, and Mommy realizes they have one little burglar left inside. Prince overheard Fool calling for help and chases him back into the bathroom, and Daddy blows a few holes into the door. Fool smashes a toilet lid over his head as he peeks inside though. Daddy unlocks the door, but Roach emerges and pulls Fool inside before Prince can snatch him. Daddy blows down the secret door and sends Prince to tear him up, and Roach cackles with glee as he leads Fool through the labyrinth of walls. He tricks the dog and sends him careening down another secret ramp leading to the kitchen. Aw, Prince is cute when he isn't mauling people. The boys head to Alice's room and they explain why Roach isn't super chatty.
Your father's one sick mother, you know that? Actually, your mother's one sick mother too.
The two bond over their shitty names, and Fool finds a pile of dolls that Alice has made to resemble all of her parents' victims. Daddy suddenly bursts in, guns a-blazing, possibly hitting Roach as he crawls back into his hidey hole. Mommy screams at her slutty Judas of a daughter and decides it is time to clean house. I guess she means literally, as she puts Alice to work cleaning up the blood, and Daddy brings Fool and Leroy to the basement. Then she gets pissed because Alice got blood on her dress and forces the girl into a scalding bath. Daddy goes full Leatherface on Leroy's corpse, giving some of the meat to his starving captives. He tosses the rest of Leroy into, what is that? Is that a septic tank maybe? Sure, we'll go with that. Then he tosses Fool under the stairs for a live feeding. A bunch of pale, feral boys surround Fool, but Roach manages to scare them away using Leroy's corpse. Daddy sends Prince down to shut the boys up, so Fool and Roach take refuge inside a furnace. Fool notices that Roach has been shot, and the Quiet King gives him a small stash of gold coins. He tells her that Alice is just above them, and the poor kid succumbs to his wounds. Fool climbs his way through the vents with Prince hot on his trail, but luckily Daddy is too confident to realize why he is barking. Fool emerges and punches Daddy in the dick, smashes a lamp over his head, and retreats into the walls with Alice. Daddy burns Roach's body in order to heat up the vents and flush them out, so the two retreat back into the walls. A sneeze gives away their location and Daddy fires away, and they almost run into another bizarre death trap. Daddy sends in Prince to see if the trap caught anyone, and for some reason Fool decides he's tired of running from the big-ass dangerous dog. He gets mauled by the Rottweiler, but fortunately for him, Daddy is too impatient to let the dog finish the job. He starts blindly stabbing the wall with a bayonet, which of course kills his own attack dog. R.I.P. Prince. There are no bad dogs, only bad owners. Alice and Fool slip away as Daddy unveils his mistaken kill, making their way up to the attic. Fool thinks they can slide down the roof into the little pond, but Alice is too afraid of the outside world to make the jump. Daddy finds them and starts blasting, but Alice stops him as Fool makes the plunge. Daddy rushes downstairs after him, but Fool escapes into the night. Mommy reminds him to never use his gun outside, and the two realize they need to prepare for a visit from the cops. Fool's grandpa tells him these coins are way more than enough to save his mom and pay the rent, and he also shares that Mommy and Daddy are actually brother and sister. The Robesons come from a long lineage of crazy who got their start selling coffins and running a funeral home. They got into real estate and started buying up people's homes, growing greedier and crazier as the years went on. Fool tells his sister he made a promise he intends to keep, which starts with him reporting child abuse at the Robeson house. Mommy and Daddy easily convince the cops that the report is bogus, actually saying Alice died years ago and they've kept her room the same to honor her memory. The coppers skedaddle and they undo all of their happy home disguises before heading to bed, allowing Fool to emerge from his hiding place. He grabs a fire poker and heads upstairs as the Robesons say their goodnight prayers, but looks like they have some tricks of their own. Daddy pops out in his BDSM gear and snatches Fool, but the little sneak pokes the maniac in his eyes. And he smacks Mommy with the fire poker for good measure. He breaks it over Daddy and heads back downstairs, using their hidden controls to open the door. Daddy whips out his shotgun and follows, but he believes Fool once again escaped into the night. He actually snuck his way up the fireplace though, which is where Alice is being held prisoner in the attic. He's able to release her and the two share a sweet moment before Daddy comes upstairs to abuse her. Luckily, Mommy intervenes, more out of jealousy than any motherly love, but this allows Alice to meet him at the escape window. Fool informs her that Mommy and Daddy aren't her real parents, they are crazed siblings who kidnapped her like Roach and all the others. She's ready to say goodbye to this life, but unfortunately Daddy filled the pond with glass and rocks, so they'll need a new escape plan. He's also strapped just about every door and window with dynamite, so they'll have to tread carefully. They head to the roof hoping to shuffle down the chimney, and Mommy and Daddy argue over whether Alice has had sex with Fool or not. Daddy believes so and says she should die for her sins, but they're interrupted by some noise. Daddy unloads some buckshot and seemingly hits Fool, but it proves to be a trick when he drops a brick into his face. The two slide down before Mommy can start shooting, and both them and the shotgun slide down to the level below. He tells Alice to escape out the back, deciding he has to stay in order to free the boys. Mommy catches her trying to escape, but Alice finally finds the courage to stand up for herself. Unfortunately, this swings Mommy into the Kill Alice camp as well, and Daddy goes on the hunt for her. They get distracted by some ruckus in the basement though, and Daddy runs into a shotgun-toting Fool. He waits too long to pull the trigger though, allowing Daddy to engage the staircase ramp and send him sliding back down. He gives Mommy his handgun to kill Alice, reclaiming his shotgun in the basement. He's ready to blow Fool's brains out, but he gets some divine intervention when someone knocks on the door. They pause their murdering in case it's the cops, but it turns out to be Ruby to complain about their shitty landlord tendencies. Mommy slams the door in her face and gives Daddy the go-ahead to kill him, but the people under the stairs distract him with some excited screaming and flashlight shining. Fool slips away and Mommy answers another knock on the door, which now includes Grandpa and the whole community of angry tenants. Mommy decides to cut her losses and shoot Ruby, but Alice descends from a vent and knocks that bitch out cold. One of the hungry boys grabs Fool and drags him over to the gate, using him to trick Daddy into shooting off their lock. They bring Fool inside their pen to safety, and Daddy is distracted when he hears Grandpa calling from the staircase. The madman gets the door slammed in his face, knocking him back down into the basement. Fool tells the cellar dwellers he can help them escape, and in exchange they show him Daddy's absolutely insane hoard of money. Mr. Krabs would be proud. Alice and Ruby are calling to Fool when they realize Mommy has slipped away and the ladder is locked outside. Alice tries the switchboard, but it has been shut down, and Mommy tells her she isn't going anywhere from over the intercom. The Mad Mama brandishes the Michael Myers special, chasing her daughter down and pinning her to the staircase. But as we all know, there's people under those stairs, and they are hungry! The creepy bastards start bursting out of the walls, floors, and cabinets, and in her panic, Mommy runs right into her own knife. She finds herself completely surrounded and opts to make killing Alice the last thing she'll ever do. The boys put a stop to that though, pouncing on her like a horde of zombies. They toss her corpse down to Daddy, who overhears as Fool finds his hoard of dynamite. He follows the sound of falling coins, believing he's finally got Fool cornered, but the boy came up with a really clever trick. He emerges with some jerry-rigged wires, which he has connected to the crate of dynamite.
I'm tired of fucking around, so either put the gun down now, or kiss your ass goodbye, boy.
He tells Daddy to drop the gun, but when he aims to shoot, Fool lights up the explosives. He jumps behind a brick wall, but Daddy gets sent flying through a wall and into the septic tank. Alice runs down to check on him, and the neighborhood celebrates as it starts raining money. The people under the stairs roam off to start new lives, and the movie ends with some redhead kingpin as what will undoubtedly be a killer block party begins. And that's The People Under the Stairs. Man, this is such a tonally and thematically layered film. Craven is exploring some of his previous subjects like incest, cannibalism, and American decay, bringing them out of the rural locations of The Hills and The Last House and into the inner city. This time his critiques surround racism, gentrification, capitalism, class warfare, and a ton of other nuanced tensions and power struggles that were in the public's eye more than ever in the 90s. This was a really volatile time in America, and Los Angeles is the perfect location for this film to take place in. I mean shit, this film was released just a year before the 1992 LA protests for the police beating of Rodney King, so these themes are based on real people, situations, relationships, and conditions. And what's wild is this film is just as, if not more relevant today than it was 30 fucking years ago. I've said it once and I'll say it again on this channel, what some people call woke horror movies are not a new thing. George Romero, Clive Barker, David Cronenberg, John Carpenter, and yes, Wes Craven were all making super political, progressive, anti-racist, anti-capitalist shit in the 80s and earlier, and it all fucking slaps. If you don't like it, go cry about it. But all of those cutting political issues are primarily in the undercurrent of the film, with the story never sacrificing itself for the themes. This plays out like a classic fairy tale along the lines of Hansel and Gretel, while also being super gothic and serious, while also adding comedy and literal slapstick humor into the mix. There is constantly so much going on, the film will always leave you guessing about where the story and tone are gonna go next. The attack dog, the DIY traps, the hallway tunnels, the abused daughter, the mutilated boys in the basement, the fucking bondage suit, and the brother-sister reveal provide us with frequent twists that keep us on our toes as we slowly unravel the Robesons and their murder house. And the house itself really plays an integral role as we get to know its inside, outside, and foundation throughout the film. The camera vividly explores the crumbling bricks, filthy surfaces, creaking floorboards, piles of dead flies, bullet-riddled walls, disgusting septic tanks, and so many more nooks and crannies of this American dream gone wrong. Mommy and Daddy make for very dynamic villains. Their antics range from hilarious to truly horrendous. They really come to represent every bit of repressed depravity lurking beneath the facade of white America. They use their status and skin color as a weapon, buying up properties only to let them decay, pump up the prices, and eventually push the residents away to make room for more white people, all while playing the good guy role and participating in the criminalization of black people for existing in the poverty they've helped create. They are leeches bleeding the ghetto dry and hoarding the money for themselves. But despite their wealth, power, and privilege, or perhaps because they've had too much of it, their souls have corrupted into heartless monsters who only care for themselves. They trap and mutilate their so-called children, who they literally kidnapped, with Mommy even allowing Daddy to sexually assault their one daughter. And they even abuse each other throughout the film. They really have no concept of love. And Fool makes for such a great protagonist in this film because he, his family, and his community contrast the Robesons so much. He's given such an important motive in the film that we can't help but empathize with him, and we also can't help but root for him because he's such an underdog. Both Alice and Roach make for great companions to him as well. One is shy and terrified of her own shadow, while the other gives zero fucks at this point. But they both have such traumatic backstories you can't help but feel for them as well. Roach may have died with a smile on his face, but damn if that isn't fucking tragic. I'd also put this up there as one of my favorite performances from Ving Rhames. His character is super fun while not playing super heavily into the black gangster stereotypes. My only real critique for the film is I wish it was just a tad more serious. There is a lot of comedy and slapstick in here that really works for me, but there are times where I feel it distracts from the horror a bit. It just feels a little bit too much like Home Alone, where I feel like it could go more of a Texas Chainsaw direction. But I know comedy was really important to Wes Craven. It's in practically every single one of his horror films, and I would say that this is one of his very best blendings of the two genres. I can definitely understand if this film isn't for someone because of its goofy mishmash tone, but for me the comedy is really necessary to keep it from being a real big downer. All in all though, The People Under the Stairs is a genuinely underrated horror film. It balances a mix of being scary, shocking, and funny while having a constantly moving and evolving plot, all while primarily taking place inside one location. It tackles a lot of serious real-world issues while also going crazy with bizarre character decisions and characteristics. It really is up there as one of Craven's most ambitious films, and it's definitely in my top 5, if not my top 3 films that he has directed. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it, and thank you again to my patron Jason for requesting it for me to review. This was a ton of fun. But what did y'all think of The People Under the Stairs? Let me know down below. It's also my understanding that Jordan Peele is producing a remake of the film, but I haven't heard much about it in a while, so let me know if you have any updates on that. Well, that's about it. Join me in 2 weeks as we check out Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. As always, I'm Noah Hook, and thanks for watching Hamburgers and Horror. Stay safe out there. Thanks for watching my review of The People Under the Stairs. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe so you can keep up with all my horror reviews, and if you want to help support this channel further, you should check out my Patreon account. You'll be able to vote for future movies and franchises I cover on the channel. Thanks y'all.